names like Roman Polak and Cody.
I'm going to give you three.
So you're going to give me three. A defenseman?
Yeah, I'm going to give you three. No. I'm going to give you. Don't look at cap friendly. Whatever you're looking at, hide your browser. Everyone in chat too. You guys can all chime in. I'm curious to see what everyone would rather have. So I'm going to give you three left wingers. Everyone's been talking about a left wing coming to Anaheim. We all know that Patrick Eaves was a big signing to play on the top line. He's obviously, unfortunately, unavailable, and they think he's back next season. Nothing's guaranteed. Obviously, he has Guillain-Barré syndrome. We're not sure how that's going to affect him. So with that said, I'm going to read you three left wings that are UFAs, and you tell me which one you'd rather have. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. First one, James Neal. Second one, James Van Riemsdyk. Third one, David Perron.
That's tough because I'm
David
torn
Perron
between,
had 50 assists this season.
I'm torn between David Perron and James Van Riemsdyk, and for me, I kind of have to lean towards the goal scorer because we've talked about the Ducks' passing ability and how at times they've overpassed and they haven't been really have that guy they can look to score goals other than Rickard Rakell. So I would go with JVR, but Perron's a close second because we know he fits here. When he was here last time, and it was disappointing to see him go. We've got a bunch of people chiming in the chat. Derek said JVR. Quacking Steve said Perron. Gordon Bombay said JVR. Jimmy was talking about how Ian Cole would be a great pickup, but it looks pretty much like everybody's talking either JVR or Perron. I mean, Diane says screw James Neal. so it looks like a two-horse race between JVR, where he looks like the clear winner in the chat, other than Quack and Steve picking David Perron. But I think both would be good options, honestly.
I mean, JVR is going to get some money, obviously, because of his season this year. He was able to put up 36 goals and 18 assists. He was making $5 million at 28 years old. Looking at David Perron, he's 29. He's put up 66 points. I mean, 50 assists is nothing to just slouch at and bypass. That's incredible for him. And we know how he fits in here. We said, right? Yeah. We know that he fits in well on that top line. He played really well with Ryan Getzlaf. I don't know what happened with the Ducks and the reason why he left and didn't want to come back. I don't know if the Ducks lowballed him or if he wanted to go back to St. Louis, which I believe is where he went before he went to Vegas. So it'd be great to see him come back, though. I mean, I had a feeling you were going to go JVR just because you're in Toronto. You want to upset all your Toronto fans. You want to make all your Leafs fans buddies happy.
I gotta do the kind of the same thing here with you, but on defense. And I'm gonna name three guys. And again, if you guys want to chime in on the chat and who you would pick, and I guess the price on these guys might be a little bit different, kind of varying between the quality of player here. So the first one would be Mike Green because he's an unrestricted free agent this year. Second one, Jack Johnson. Third one, Ian Cole.
I would go Mike Green, 100%.
How much do you think he's going to realistically cost this year? Because it was a big surprise that he didn't get dealt at the deadline, which was a huge misstep by the Red Wings not dealing him and getting something for him. He's probably going to go somewhere else. I think he was making about $6 million. He probably doesn't make that again, but he had a pretty good season. I mean, he had, let's see here, he had 33 points in 66 games. Played about 22 minutes on average per night. He was a big part of their power play, and he was a valuable player for them. I mean, he could be a guy that I feel like he's the best option for talent-wise available.
I think he solves the power play issue.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw how ineffective it was without Cam Fowler, and there were some issues there. And I know Green had an injury, and that was part of the reason why he was difficult to trade at the deadline for Detroit. I'm not a huge Ian Cole fan, and I'm definitely not a Jack Johnson fan, whatsoever. I know the Ducks were talking about him. Not a fan. I can't see that. I would rather go with what Diane said or Daniel in chat, Eric Carlson or Chris Pronger. I mean, I love Chris Pronger. Just pull him out of retirement. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, you had Derek and Gordon saying Ian Cole, Diane said Johnson, Chase said Mike Green, but he's going to get money, and I think that's the big stepping stone.
At 32, you think he's going to make more than $6 million? There's no way. He's
not going to make more than. Right? I think he's probably going to get around 4, because some teams overpay in free agency, and when he's the number 1 D available, right? So he's going to get a decent amount of money because of that, and we always see that in free agency. I mean, guys get paid more than they should, And the fact that he is the marquee guy for any team looking for defense in free agency, he's going to get paid more than he should. So, I mean, Gordon doesn't like it because he says Mike Green is whack. Diane wants to bring back Chris Pronger so we can bring him out of retirement.
I was all for that. 100% on board with bringing back Pronger.
Jimmy says trade Doughty for Perry straight up.
I'm sure the Kings would go for that. Everyone wants Corey Perry on their team. In fact, let's get to that.
Yeah.
That was an interesting tweet that you had sent to me. I don't know if you retweeted it on our Twitter feed, but it kind of explained to everybody what's going on, because we never thought this would be the case, is what's being talked about right now.
Yeah, I mean, we got proved wrong right after we talked about it on our last show. We said there's no way the Ducks are going to be able to move Corey Perry, and we didn't talk about Ryan Getzlaf, but that would be kind of in the same boat. And because of the no movement clauses, because of the amount of money they have on their contracts. And then, of course, we get 2 comments the next day from Darren Dreger and from Elliot Friedman talking about the Ducks situation and what they would do if they got swept and went out with a whimper, or even if they just lost in the first round, which, of course, has already happened, that they might be looking to move Corey Perry or Ryan Getzlaf. Now, this isn't hardcore rumors that they're shopping them, but they were looking at possible options if it was to happen with the Ducks, if they could move them and who would be interested. And there would be a lot of interest in not just Ryan Getzlaf, but also Corey Perry. And what they were stating is that a lot of teams are going to be in on John Tavares because he is really the only prize to be had in free agency this year. And teams like St. Louis, the Sharks, among others, are going to be interested in John Tavares, and whether he signs back in the Island or if he goes to one of those teams, there's going to be a bunch of teams that miss out on him and are going to be looking for secondary backup options. And if the Ducks are really looking to move on from Corey Perry, that would be the guy. I struggle to say Ryan Getzlaf because I don't feel like that's a guy they'd be looking to move on from, but if they're going pure rebuild, that is an option again. But those are backup options for those teams and for other teams that miss out on John Tavares. That's basically what they said, is that other teams would be interested in them. They would be willing to take on the money, and it really comes down to the fact that if Corey Perry or Ryan Getzlaf would waive their no-movement clauses.
And you know what? It's shame on us, though, honestly, for saying that we don't see that happening as a no-move clause. I mean, it's so funny how we say that, but we talk about other players waiving their no-move clause to go anywhere. We talk about, Max Pacioretty waiving his no-move to come to Anaheim. It's like, it happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens.
I think for me it was more about the money. I just didn't think, Ryan Getzlaf's a whole different story because I feel like a team would take on the amount of money he has right now, despite, the $8.5 million contract, because, he's still producing. For me, it was Corey Perry. I didn't know if anybody would want to pay $8.625 million for the next 3 seasons for a guy that, yes, he still hits 50 points, but he's definitely not worth that money. And you don't know where you're going to get, but maybe it's the bounce back. Maybe it's the new scenery kind of story that we hear a lot with some guys. It's usually with the younger guys, but you never know. That could be what other teams bank on with Corey Perry, that if he gets in the right system with a different team, that he can become a 30-goal scorer again, because that would be something the Ducks would definitely be selling to other teams if they were moving him, is that if you get him in your system, there's a chance he can rebound and be that guy again.
So Diane says in the comments, I don't know if she's being sarcastic or not, she says, what's wrong with Corey Perry? I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times on the show before about how he's had to wear knee braces on both of his knees. He's had knee injuries across his career. He's taken a lot of damage. I mean, for a guy that plays the style he does going to the front of the net, you watch a game and we talk about how much of a pest he is. He gets hacked and whacked and cross-checked and hit constantly. Yeah. That guy is taking – I mean, he and Kessler, I feel like, just take just a ton of damage in front of the net their whole careers. And he's just at that point. He's 31, I believe, almost 32, which I hate to say is old because I'm only a year older than him or 2 years older than him at that point. So, but in hockey years, when you take that kind of damage, it's just at that point in his career where things just start to fade for that type of player. Getzlaf, not so much. He's a bigger man. He doesn't play that kind of game as much. He's a nasty player physically, but he doesn't take a lot of damage, and he's able to control the game with his play. He's a very much a cerebral player. I feel like Getzlaf would be the guy that doesn't get moved. I feel like if they're going to try to trade anybody, they're going to try to trade Perry. Like, I think you would agree on that. And Perry in another city, if he's sitting on the second line or third line, that's fine. and that's where he is in Anaheim. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to get out of him unless they put him with another playmaker that's better than Getzlaf, which maybe there's 5 more in the league that are better than Ryan Getzlaf. I mean, I don't think you're going to see Perry put in more than what he's doing right now. The Ducks aren't going to get what they ultimately want, because you can't get rid of something you don't want to get something you do want. You kind of have to get fair value.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're taking on a huge chunk of I think they have 4 years left on their deals, and Perry's making almost $9 million. The Ducks are going to have to retain salary, I feel like, to make a deal out of it. Yeah. And maybe throw in a younger player if they want to get a good asset back.
Listen, like Daniel says in here, if we trade Getz, then it's a full rebuild. And I'd argue that it's almost the same thing if we trade Corey Perry, because you just mentioned, I mean, you're not going to get what you want in return for him. And you're going to have to retain salary already. So what you're getting in return most likely is some kind of package to look towards the future. You're not going to you're not going to see a hockey trade with Corey Perry for a different type of player with the same caliber. I really don't see it, and you're not going to get the type of cap relief you're looking for if you have to retain salary, where you can go out and maybe get 2 players like a Perron or somebody else in free agency, where you can kind of replace Corey Perry's production with 2 separate players and add some more depth. I just don't think it's possible, and I honestly think trading Perry, if it became an option, would signal either a rebuild or a retool by the Ducks. I don't see how it's anything other than that, just like it would be if we saw Ryan Getzlaf get moved out. It's one of those types of move where you're moving on from what you've had and you're looking towards the future. And I mean, the Ducks have a lot of good pieces coming up, but I don't see how you end up trading Corey Perry without signaling the start of a rebuild.
Yeah, especially because you don't have a lot of forwards that are going to be putting up 40 points a season plus that are coming up that are going to replace him. I mean, we're already talking about moving Nick Ritchie and him not being signed as an RFA. You know, if we were Bob Murray, and who would we put in his spot? You know, at that point, we're hoping that a Sam Steele or a Max Jones or Comtois is able to come in and fill that role, and we both feel like Steele's the guy. But we don't know. You never know what you're going to get when a player hasn't been playing AHL or even AHL games, let alone NHL games. I mean, Ritchie lit up the AHL for his short stints there, and it just hasn't translated to the NHL. So it's hard to read players. Where would you even begin to think of shopping Corey Perry?
What team?
Yeah. I feel like moving Getzlaf, I mean, Getzlaf would be first center across the board on so many teams.
Yeah.
You could get a gigantic return for Ryan Getzlaf. Corey Perry, I'm not so sure you can get what you think you're going to get.
No, there would be teams I think that would be interested at the forefront for me is maybe Vegas as a team that would be able to take on most of his salary. You might have to retain a little bit. I kind of hesitant on a little bit now because they did just get Thomas Tatar, where they essentially just took on his entire contract and added a bit more salary. And I feel like they're a team that probably jumps back in on Erik Karlsson for next year, and that helps them a little bit more. I mean, they probably will, and they might even get him because they were the only team apparently close at the deadline. So that and with another year under their belt of drafting some players at this upcoming draft, wherever they end up drafting, no matter what, they'll add some more assets to their cupboards that they can maybe look at getting rid of a guy like Nick Suzuki or Cody Glass and sending them over to the Senators, which is crazy to think about an expansion team who doesn't have a lot of prospects to begin with. They drafted well at the last draft. They have probably 3 prospects that are going to be good players that you know
Cody
are going
Glass
to be good players.
Is the big one, and they don't want to get rid of him. That was one of the sticking points I heard in the trade is they didn't want to throw him in there for Erik Karlsson. They wanted to
and Nick Suzuki, is no slouch either. He's been amazing with Owen Sound in the OHL, and they drafted this kid, I think, in the second round, Brandstrom, out of Sweden as a defenseman. He's a guy that's projected to be a top 4 power play quarterback in the National Hockey League. So they've got some good guys they've drafted well, and their only draft that they've had so far, and they'll add some more guys this year. So maybe they'll be more willing to give up a guy like that depending on who they draft. And it'll be interesting to see the way they draft at this year's draft. Maybe they end up going back and drafting another center and seeing what they can do with that, and possibly then adding Cody Glass to any kind of deal. But I feel like they go and they try and get defense first, right? Because you look at that blue line, and they've done well, and Miller and Theodore have been great. But Derek Engeland's not a long-term option. He was good this year, surprisingly. I mean, we laughed at the fact that was the guy they went to from Calgary. You felt like it was just because he was from Vegas, and that's why they ended up going and getting him. He actually had a good season. I think he played most of the season with Shea Theodore, and they were good. And Brady McNabb was a good pickup from LA for them too. So they've got a lot of top 4 young guys, but they don't have that marquee guy.